that again if you can.
No problem. Okay. How have you created successful outreach to grow participation in 350 New Orleans?
Successful outreach to.
Like to the volunteers who work in your organization.
Oh, gotcha. Okay. Well, I think there's a couple ways. I think one thing that we've tried to do is always stay as sort of like public and open to members as we can. So we have like a monthly meeting which is held at the same time every month. Currently it's on Zoom that we promote to the community. We always invite like an expert to come and speak. And that just kind of serves as a time for us to kind of talk about our group, talk about the work that we're doing, while at the same time bringing people in to like engage in an issue related to environmental justice. So I think that's one, that's been one sort of key aspect of our outreach. We also accept invitations to, to have like tables at events and sign-up sheets. Occasionally we're asked to speak at like career days and rallies and things like that. So we make sure that we always accept those invitations and have, just as much of a presence in the community as we can at those types of events.
Yeah.
And then we sit on a lot of different coalitions, and so we will go to like a lot of community meetings, like Justice and Beyond meetings, sometimes People's Assembly, things like that. And those are always just really great opportunities to network with a lot of other local groups and to people who might be interested in the type of work that we do.
Yeah, fantastic. Thank you. My next question is, how do you maintain like an active community and like base of support? So like, how do you keep all of your members like involved and engaged in like the process?
That's a really good question. Well, our membership is kind of divided. Of the ones who kind of work with us actively, we divide our membership into work groups. So it means that if someone is interested in some of the work we do, but not some of the other work that we do, they can join a work group that really aligns with their passions. So they can always just be, studying something or working on an issue that's very important to them. We also really do our best to prioritize like fellowship with each other. So, for example, we all just had a pool party a couple of weeks ago, and we wore our masks and everything. We had some money in the budget to buy people pizza. We want to just create these spaces that are very intentional for people to be able to, just hang out without talking about work, and realizing that, every once in a while we just want to hang out with each other as friends and not necessarily talk about climate change, which can get pretty depressing.
Yeah.
So we create those opportunities as much as we can.
Yeah, definitely. That kind of ties into my next question. I was wondering, how do you process like disagreement or ideological contention within the movement? Are these opinions
really
like counterproductive, or do you see them as like valuable?
So we are. That's a real big question that you asked. It's a really good question.
Thank you.
I guess I'll start by saying our organization is a non-hierarchical one. We don't have an executive director. We don't have any paid staff. So we have like a lateral leadership structure, and we follow a consensus decision-making process as part of that structure. I won't go into the details of that, but I think the point is like we do have written down like a decision-making process that we've all agreed to, and the decision-making process never ends with one person kind of making a decision. It always kind of works towards consensus. Even if you can't get a majority, or you can't get like unanimous agreement on an issue. We at least work towards consensus, and we make sure that no one, even if they don't really get their way, that they feel like their voice is being heard, right? Because, we don't always get our way, but we always want to hear that people understand where we're coming from and understand our point of view.
That's really interesting. So it's like a
yeah.
flat kind of democratic sort of decision-making process.
Yeah, and it's certainly not perfect, especially when you need to make quick decisions.
Mm-hmm.
It does not lend itself well to making quick decisions, but it's still been worth it, absolutely, as a process.
Can you go into?
It gets a little messier. Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Can you go into like the difficulties of like a non-hierarchical system, like a little bit more, if you don't mind?
Yeah. I think so. Right now, for example, we got a large financial gift coming in, which was wonderful. And I, as the president of the board of the organization, I have very clear ideas of what I want to do with the money. And some of it is kind of time sensitive. However, with our volunteer structure, and with all these competing priorities that a lot of people have, it's been impossible for us to gather folks together to make a quick decision. So that just kind of gets frustrating, because I can't just make that unilateral decision. This is what we're going to do with the money. And that means that, we have more buy-in when we do make a decision, but the decision will just be a little bit longer in coming. I think another thing that is difficult is knowing just all the variations on who should weigh in on a decision. Just because someone comes to our meetings, does that mean that they weigh in on every decision? What if they're weighing in on a topic that that they've never really worked on before?
Yeah.
Is that fair? Does that carry as much weight as someone who's been working on that same topic for 3 or 4 years?
Definitely.
So I think those are some of the difficulties, is being able to clarify like who has a voice. Ideally, everyone has a voice, but if people put in a little bit extra effort and time, shouldn't they get more of a voice? Those are the sort of questions that we don't necessarily have an answer to, but that we're just trying to work through.
All right. My next question: how does your organization recover from failure? When one of your initiatives fails, how do you keep up hope and morale?
Oh, that's a really good question. These are excellent questions.
Thank you.
Yeah. I would say we've redefined what it means to fail. Because when you do environmental justice organizing in particular, and especially in the South, you fail a lot in the sense that what you set out to do doesn't happen, or what you set out to prevent does happen. So, for example, one thing that we really threw ourselves into was the BioBridge pipeline fight. Are you familiar with that pipeline?
I am, yeah.
Okay. So we were very much committed to that fight, and obviously the pipeline did end up getting built. And that was hard because of the amount of work that had gone into that. But taking stock at the end of that fight, I think we realized, we started to count up, how many people we had engaged in New Orleans on the topic, how many people in Cancer Alley communities we had met and started to organize with, people that we just hadn't known before. And even as several of us were arrested alongside that pipeline route, realizing how much time and money and resources we had cost this company who was trying to build this pipeline. So ultimately they did build the pipeline, but I think hopefully what we did was kind of shift the calculus and the decision making of them realizing, okay, next time we build in Louisiana, it's going to be that much more difficult for us. You know, so maybe we should like reconsider where it is that we kind of plan these infrastructure projects. I mean, that's an oversimplified version of it, but
yeah, definitely.
You know, we did want to be a major inconvenience to them, and I think we're successful. And then, as I mentioned before, the networking aspect we got out of that fight was tremendous. So I think more than anything, I think that helped our morale, is really taking stock of what worked. Because in every fight, something will work, even if it's just you learning a lesson about what doesn't work.
What did you find effective in that fight?
I think we learned a lot of different tools for fighting a pipeline. For example, we connected with folks who had fought different pipelines across the country, and they trained some people in Louisiana in doing monitoring along the route. So, like, how to walk a pipeline route, how to, you know, make sure that you kind of stay on the right side of the law when you do so, what sort of violations you can look for that you can report to the regulatory agencies that might potentially get a project delayed or even shut down altogether. That was the sort of work that we hadn't done before. So that skill building, I think, was really valuable. We also trained many people in civil disobedience during that fight. And those are still people that we can kind of call on today for actions that we need to sort of elevate in importance. So I feel like we kind of increased the skill base of our movement and also brought more people in to the movement and trained them as well.
All right.
So I think it kind of gave us more resources than we had before we started.
Okay. Just one more. This one's maybe a little bit more, I guess, nebulous and open-ended, but so I can imagine the difficulty of a ground-up movement like 350 challenging Louisiana's enormous oil industry and anti-climate lobbyists. Is there any philosophy that you hold that gives any comfort in the face of huge obstacles like these?
I think the key to being successful is coalition work. 350, we're good at what we do. There's a lot that we're not good at. One thing we're not really great at is like raising money. So we've always been very poor. But we work in coalition with other groups who have distinct skills. So Healthy Gulf, for example, I don't know if you know that organization, but they are just really, really good with the law. And they sue regulatory agencies, they sue pipeline companies. That's their area of expertise. So for us to work in coalition with them, that really amplifies our effectiveness. And then the opposite is true as well. These organizations that might be more sort of policy savvy, but not really have organizing power or competence, we are better at getting people to like turn out for stuff. We're better at sort of mobilizing public action and raising public attention. So we've been able to contribute in that way. So whenever we feel small, we just try to get a little bigger by being part of the coalition. My vision for Louisiana is that all organizations who are working on environmental justice can kind of view themselves as a holistic coalition where different members play different roles. Because I think that will kind of help change this narrative that we're like the little guys fighting this huge corporate beast. If we can kind of grow by considering ourselves part of a larger body that's not just our organization. Does that make sense? And does that answer your question at all?
Definitely.
Okay.
All right. Well, thank you so much for your time. It's very nice to meet you. I loved hearing about everything.
Yeah, you're welcome. I'm glad I could help. And if you ever, are you in Lafayette?
I am. Yeah.
Okay. If you're ever in New Orleans, you should come to some of our meetings.
Definitely.
And actually, you can join them on Zoom too, because now we're just meeting on Zoom.
Oh yeah.
So you're always welcome.
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much.
Yes, you're welcome.
All right,
And
bye.
have a nice night.
You too.
Bye.